Hello and good morning or good afternoon. I'm Michelle DiMarzo, Curator of Education and Academic Engagement at the Fairfield University Art Museum, and welcome to another virtual edition of our Art and Focus series, when we choose one artwork to have a casual, informal conversation about. As always, if you're watching this live, you can use the chat box to put in any comments or observations you might have. You can always send those to museum@fairfield.edu after the fact if something occurs to you afterward or if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this live, I wanted to make mention that this very evening at 5 p.m., you could come right back to the Quick Live to watch Professor Brian Walker, Fairfield faculty member, talking about his experiences as a penguin biologist. He is just back from I think, 6-month Fulbright that took him to Chile, to Cape Town, South Africa, and to New Zealand. Not all involving penguins, we don't think. We will find out more this evening. Where we will also be recording that and adding that to our YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube in the future, you can look at the Helen Glazer Walking in Antarctica playlist and you will see Dr. Walker's talk there as well. So we were inviting Dr. Walker this evening because he's worked in Antarctica, and our object today comes from the show Helen Glazer Walking in Antarctica that is only up for just a few more days at the Fairfield University Art Museum. So if you are local to us, just know that it's closing on Saturday, so you have very few chances to see the show. If you've watched an Art in Focus before and I'm showing something that is in one of our special exhibitions, you might remember that I usually will start with a installation photo that will show you the layout of the exhibition and get you a little bit situated, maybe in terms of scale or size. And I'm purposely not doing that. I do have that photo, which I will show you in a moment, but I wanted to bring the artwork itself to the screen first. You see the title, Blue Fractals, Erebus Ice Tongue Cave. We're looking at a photograph from 2015, taken while Helen Glazer was a National Science Foundation Fellow in Antarctica. She had a 7-week residency. You can also check our YouTube channel for her opening night lecture, which was a lot of fun. And she explained that the National Science Foundation has this long-running program where they bring artists and writers to Antarctica in the hopes that they will use their own medium to share with the broader public something about this very distant, both physically and psychologically, landscape that is so important to our continued survival as a human species, but that scientific data alone might not be able to communicate quite so clearly or effectively. And we learned from Helen that she was working alongside scientists who, of course, are looking at the environment around them with a very different set of lenses than she is as a photographer, as someone who's interested in 3D printing and sculpture. So it was fascinating to hear from her in person when she was here at Fairfield. Again, you can listen to that lecture live on or recorded on our YouTube channel. And this was one of the photographs that I think most enraptured the museum staff when we were looking at the photographs before they came to Fairfield. So of course, in the year and a half or so in advance, we had access to images of what was going to be in the show, and we were flicking through them, all of them extraordinary, but this is one of the ones that really captured our attention. And what's fascinating about it is that you can look at it for a very long time and see many different things in it. This is true for a number of photographs in the show that are so closely cropped that you could think you are, for example, in some of them underwater. We learned none of them were underwater. They were in various ice caves. Or you just have this sort of unearthly glow that makes you really need to look deeply and try to get a sense of where are we in space. And I don't say space lightly because I'll show you an image in a few minutes of what this particular image makes me think of. If you look at the bottom center of the screen, you start, I think, to see more of what we expect when you think of someone photographing ice. Because when I think of ice, I certainly think of it as being white. And in the bottom center of the screen, we have a dark sort of opening framed by sort of very brilliantly white ice crystals that really reveal their sort of fractal looking patterns. But as you move toward the boundaries of the image, the colors have this wonderful array of sort of aqua blue tints leading toward dark grays. And I'm fascinated by, there are lots of touches of what seem to be gold, almost as if gold leaf is glinting off some of the edges of these fractal shapes. So the image might start with a sense of ice as we imagine it, and then it becomes something almost otherworldly. And we learned from Helen that the photograph was taken not on the main body of Antarctica itself, but in a cave that's on an ice shelf called the Erebus ice cave. And it's hard to imagine, but she explained that to access this environment, one had to slide on one's belly into a hole in the ice for about 8 feet. And then once inside, you could stand up in what was not a very large space. And the sense of being enveloped is also very prominent for me as I look at this photograph, especially as I have it here blown up on screen. I mean, if we're imagining that we're standing, it seems that there might be another chamber beyond that white area at the bottom center of the photograph. But it really does seem that those ice crystals are around us. They are at our shoulders all around. So she explained she visited this ice cave a couple of times. Of the first on her own without sort of other illumination. And the second time she went back with a mountaineer who had brought a lantern. And it was the use of the lantern moving it through this ice cave as she took photographs that allowed her to get this interaction of light and ice to produce this ethereal image that we're seeing. Which is, of course, makes sense because you think you're in a cave. Where would the illumination be coming from? There has to be an artificial light source. At least in this image, she has some others where she was photographing sort of through the roof of the ice cave, as it were. But that is what allowed her to get such an interesting image. And she said, with sort of self-deprecatingly, at a certain point, without that, a photograph of ice with flash would just be a photograph of ice. But using this additional light source, framing it behind some of the outcroppings of ice, gave it this remarkable alterations of color, but also the sense of shadowing and depth that I find absolutely fascinating to look at. And very meditative, honestly. But when I said looks like space, this image came across my social media dash this week. It's a brand new photograph that has come back from the James Webb Space Telescope of a star forming area of deep space. And this is what it made me think of. Now, I know perfectly well that Helen's photograph is a photograph in Antarctica. It is of this world. But that sense of the white at the center blurring outward to these deeper colors. Here, it's tinges of red going into black, but you note those little specks of gold, which also, again, oops, I don't know why I put our logo on there, but you're seeing this superimposed over Helen's photograph. Those little glints of gold around the image just make me think of that idea of a star formation or of a galaxy, which is just, again, a wonderful way that Helen's photographs in the show, they can be something that are very tied to a specific reality, her experiences. You can, in the exhibition, listen to her audio guide as she walked through the Arctic landscape, recording what it was that she was experiencing. Or you can let your mind take you to all sorts of other connections and possibilities. So this is the view of as you walk into the exhibition that I might typically have begun with to give you a sense of setting and of scale. And scale has actually been one of the most interesting things to talk about with visitors and with students coming to this exhibition, because Helen explained that Antarctica is extraordinarily vast. And once you get away from overt signs of human engagement, like at McMurdo Station, you lose all sense of scale. It is very difficult to understand how large something is, how far away something is, because of the vastness of the Arctic landscape. And what I find interesting is the choices that she made in printing her photographs, some of which are printed at quite large scale, and others which are not. And that includes, looking out another wall in the gallery, the photograph that we've been looking at for the past few minutes is to the right of this main wall. It's in that alcove to the right, and it's the bottom of the two photographs. So it is by no means the largest photographic print in the exhibition. There are other shots from that cave or on the wall that we're looking at dead ahead. But in part, one of our visitors who was here with us during the in-person, we talked about what the difference is in the scale of the printed photograph, like what that does. Obviously, large ones have their attraction allure. You can stand around them with a group of people. But these were two students who came to the in-person event, and they pointed out that the small photographs really demand you to walk up close and take a close look at them. Or they invite you, let's say, rather than demand. And just by chance, by the architecture of our galleries, this alcove literally does ask you to take a step inward, a step closer. So it's interesting to experience them that way in person, which of course on a screen, I have the ability to blow it up to fill your span of view, or I could shrink it down to a small detail. that's just the power that our digital tools give us in this modern environment. So as I said, this is a show that is closing this Saturday. We're open tonight until 8 o'clock if you're watching this live and you're near Fairfield and you want to take a look. But if you aren't, you can visit our website, which is fairfield.edu/museum/Helen-Glazer. And you can take a virtual tour of the exhibition. You can access the audio guide and listen to artist Helen Glazer talk to you about her Antarctic experience. You can read the materials that are there. So we hope that you all have a chance to come and see this incredible show in person. I haven't even shown you any pictures of penguins, but they are in the back gallery. She was able to visit a penguin nesting colony site as well. So penguins all around. And it's just been a wonderful experience, very meditative, as many visitors have mentioned, this ability to sort of stop and fall into a photographic image, which again could be of this world or it could be of another. So we hope that you will find a way to engage with Helen's fantastic exhibition, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next iteration of Art in Focus.